When I was younger, especially around my early teens, I would always step out into the back porch and I would stargaze for days. And aside from the questions that I've had always asked till this day, where do we go from here? I always thought of what else is out there beyond Earth. Aside from the planets, the galaxies, is there another humankind? Are there aliens out there? That's something that I've always questioned. I know that I'm not the only one that thought about this. And sometimes I find it wild that if you only think that we're the only one that exists here in this universe, then I think you're crazy. I think you're the crazy one if you don't think this. In this episode, we're going to get into UFOs, aliens, crop circles. We didn't do any topic on abduction, but for the most part, it got kind of spooky a little bit when I was doing a little bit of the research. But anyway, if your mind is curious about this, tune in and listen up. Cue the intro. Testing mic check. I talk to dead people and I still have time to slay. Dead or alive, I keep it cute. And you're listening to the Peter Beth Podcast. Hi guys, welcome back to the Peter Vet Podcast. I'm so sorry that I didn't get to put up an episode last week because things just wasn't working right. So before the week that I was supposed to upload an episode, guess what happened? I deleted my point of view. I had a special guest coming in. We recorded the episode. It was really great. They're also a medium, and I was pissed. I went to go in and edit. I was like, what happened to my point of view? The only thing that sucks about it is that from my point of view, I had recorded the sound system into my phone. I deleted that one. If it was their point of view and I put the sound into their point of view, I wouldn't have mine not showing my face. So there's that. And then once I did that, I was like, damn, I got to put an episode. This all happened last week. I got to do an episode. I want to hurry up and put one out for you guys. And then I call up my friend who also had an amazing stories about curses and ghost stories like I did not know about. You're going to have to tune in for that. I recorded it and it'll record it about half an hour. I was pissed. And it was a great conversation. We're going to reshoot the both of them. So for this episode, I decided to do one by myself. What I'm planning to do is that I have one by myself, then I have one with guests, and then I have another one by myself. But apparently you're going to get another one with just me for this episode. So thank you so much for taking the time with me because I'm only a one-man hoe. I'm only a one beach. I'm doing all of this by myself. I'm having fun though. My ex used to always say this, like, you can play now, but watch when you have people behind the background scene working for you. You're going to miss it. And it's really nice for him to say that. Really nice of him to believe in me in that sense. So I do believe in that. So right now, I'm enjoying it. Anyway, guys, get into this topic with me today. We're going to be talking about aliens. Okay, alien. Guys, I have my laptop with me. I told you that I'm going to be strategic and I'm going to plan thoroughly. As I was doing the research, I got kind of spooked out because some of the files that I went into, they were in the international files. They were in the government files, like the White House. And as I was doing some of the research, I was like, are they listening? And if they are, like, fuck you. Fuck you for being nosy. The CIA is on to me right now for doing the research. Like, listen, I was like Google, YouTube. So a lot of the stories that I dug up, they were mainly from YouTube and Google. Not so much the government files, even though it's legitimate. But I hate the government right now. I hate our government right now. So we'll leave it at that. But seeing the files, the actual, not the actual file, but like the copied file of what happened during the 40s, it spooked me out a little bit. I'm like, holy shit. The amount of sightings that, especially the US, obviously, that they kept was quite, how do I say this? I'm trying to find a fancy word. I don't have a fancy word for it. It was a lot. And it was somewhat eerie, kind of. So if you are driving and if you are watching this is going to get pretty interesting. Okay. So this is how we're going to first start off, right? Um, UFOs. They're not called UFOs anymore. UFOs, abbreviations, the meaning is called unidentified flying objects. It is now officially called by the government that it's called unidentified anomalous phenomena. It's referred to airborne aircrafts that they still don't have an answer to this. So this is why they switched the calling of these spacecraft, whatever you want to call it, because they're not from here. And the president of you know who that we won't name, Ataki Ban. Oh, just kidding. I'm not kidding. Who's Mato? This year, in January of 2026, it was declassified government records that it was issued to the Americans of these UAP. It's a public release in May 8th of 2026, which I thought it was pretty cool. After all these years of people just wanting to know if there is UFO aircrafts or aliens of anything that's coming from not our space, I was just space, universe, because to me, we're all connected in this realm of universe, that there is something out there. That's fucked and kind of amazing at the same time. So through various sightings of unidentifying flying objects, I'm going to go back to UFOs, were reported over 100 years before the mid 1940s. And for some reason, all of that era, this is when sightings started to happen. And around, of course, World War II marked the beginning of the new phase of interest in UAPs. With our first reported sightings of UAP was in June 24th, 1947, when private pilot Kenneth Arnold saw 9 fast moving, glowing bright blue lights flying in a V-shaped formation over the Washington Mount Rainier. He estimated that the flying object was moving about, I wrote it down here somewhere, about over 1,400 mile per hour. That's super fast. I don't actually know what's the fastest aircraft that moves out there that's made by mankind, but to me, it's about 14 to 17,000 mile per hour. That's super fast. So what he had said was that the aircraft or the saucer had even skipped over across the ocean or the water. And this is why they kind of deemed the term flying saucer around that time. And after the news broke out after Arnold's sightings, it hit media, right? Similar reportings and sightings came about around the same time. So also in July 1947, in Roseville, Mexico, newspaper claimed that personnel of the nearby U.S. Army airfield has also recovered a crashed flying object. But then they try to cover it up as a weather balloon that was crashed. You know, the government is always, I don't understand. Well, maybe it's for our safety that the government keep these things away from us, because I don't know how I would take it if the government all of a sudden decided to fucking show us actual footage of aliens and real identified UAPs. I'm going to go back to UAPs and UFOs back and forth, so I apologize. I don't know how I would take it, even though I really want to know. Does that make sense? Oh my gosh, I'm getting goosebumps already thinking about that. Oh. So yeah, so maybe there is a good reason why the government keeps these things away from the public. Here's something that I find very um kind of uh it's a witness that happened during 1941. Okay, it's by Reverend William G. Huffman in 1941 in Garado in Missouri. I love this story. I've heard this before. So if you are listening to this, you probably heard of this story. It's a famous story of this reverend who actually was summoned to come pray over a crash landing UAP. So what happened was that Reverend, which was I find it very interesting that they called upon the Reverend to come over to pray over the crash landing because it was said that there has been bodies found at this crash landing spot, right? It kind of reflect back to like the Cambodian custom or tradition. When someone passed away, we would invite the monks to come over to chant over a loved one's body when they passed. It mainly is when they're passed through sickness. It's not so much through anything tragic, like within the spot, like a car accident. They wouldn't have the monk come over to chant over a murder scene, because there got to be investigations of that sort of the matter. But I just thought it was pretty interesting how the reverend was called upon to do this. So when he was called upon to pray over the bodies that he thought it was human, like he was under the impression that he was attending a conventional small airplane crash to pray over the body. Upon arrival, he witnessed the disc-shaped object, and in the interior of the object contained small metal chairs, gouges, dials, and hieroglyphic writings among the shield of the circular object. He also saw three entities. So they're not human bodies, they're non-human people that he witnessed. And apparently that as he was praying over, he remembers seeing them taking their last breath. So he were able to see quite a few moments of them breathing. They were laying on the ground. So apparently two were just outside the craft, with a third somewhat further away. He described that the bodies were all hairless, with large heads and big eyes, small mouths, and very small ears. The Reverend Huffman said that the dead individuals were about 4 feet tall and seemed to have no hard bone structures, but very long arms and fingers. I don't know why I want to sing this, but hi ho, hi ho. Oh my gosh. They were dwarfs. They were dwarfs. Imagine being called to come do your job and expecting to see what you're familiar with, and then to see something out of the norm. I didn't really dive deep into if there was interviewed, if Reverend Hoffman was interviewed about this, because now I'm thinking like I have these thoughts like, what was he going through? Because he is a religious man, and I'm pretty sure religion will teach you the way of God and that the only God exists, that nothing else. And for you to see a spacecraft and three non-human bodies, well, what does that say about religion and all of that organized religion? I'm just curious, like, like what his thought was going through, what his mind was going through. But then FBI has sworn secrecy for him to never talk about this, and that it did not happen. I only got that further, but I found that super interesting. But again, obviously, like, government's always trying to hide things. I've always say that things that are being kept I always say that things that are kept in the dark is going to come to the light, like the Epstein files. Oops, I said it. I fucking said it. It just needs to happen super faster. Isn't that crazy? What would you do? What would you do if you have witnessed aliens in front of you. I also have my own alien story or sightings, but I'll talk about that later. I didn't write in here. I wasn't planning on telling my own personal story, but I guess I will. Here's another story. This one This one I was super fascinated. So on September 16th, 1994, 62 children from the age 6 to 12 at the area school in Aruva, Zimbabwe, reported seeing one or more silver disc-shaped craft descend and landed on the playground. This is during broad daylight. This is actually a famous story. You can actually look it up. The students described these small humanoid beings with large heads and eyes, and they were approaching them, communicating with them telepathically. And they were kind of like in a standstill, kind of like frozen, and a lot of them were frightened because it's unfamiliar. This is like not something they are have seen before. I would be freaked out too. Oh my gosh, I don't know, this shit would like traumatize me to see aliens just standing there communicating with you telepathically. Here's the fucking interesting part is that the aliens were communicating to them telepathically, warning them about the Earth environmental, like what's happening within Earth. Like, hello. I swear, like, I feel like aliens, the reason why we are able to see these things of aliens and UFOs because they're trying to tell us something. They're telling us that we're fucking up and we're not taking our shit seriously. Earth is ghetto. I will tell you that. We are some ghetto ass fucking human beings. And I feel like this is from in my opinion, I think the reason why all these sightings of aliens, I feel like the aliens the reason why they can only communicate with us telepathically because they're advanced beings. And they don't want to overexhaust themselves by talking. Talking is exhausting. If you imagine if I could just yell at you and talk to you and confront you by telepathically communicating with you through your minds, like easy peasy. So these advanced beings are trying to communicate with us to tell us to be more advanced and telling us to shut the fuck up and come together. And look what's happening with our world. Global warming. Global warming, man. So around this time, it was occurred around 10 a.m. during mid-morning recess. I said midday, right? Damn, 10 a.m. I hope like some of the teachers that witnessed this had their coffee around that time. Imagine not having your coffee at 10 a.m. and then seeing fucking a UAP in the middle of the field, and these freaking kids are just standing there at a standstill communicating with these aliens or these non-human. I would freak the fuck out. I would be pissed off too, though. Let me have my coffee first. So, the children describe these figures to be about 3 to 4 feet tall. What are the odds that all these stories are kind of about the same? They were wearing tight black bodysuits, possessing pale faces and enormous wrapped around black eyes. Several students reported receiving direct, nonverbal, telepathic messages about the destructions of the environment and technological pollution that's happening on Earth. There is a documentary on the aerial phenomena. Go ahead and check that out. I have not seen it on YouTube. I did see a little bit of clips like a couple years back. It kind of like freaked me out, but I did a little bit of the Google search. And I know that they kind of had like some interview among the eyewitness. It kind of messed them up mentally. I would be too. And I wonder if some of the witness had felt some, how do I say this? Some sort of connection rather than being frightened with aliens, that they're able to communicate with them and telling them that Earth is ghetto. How, like, I know that some people has feelings with these type of connection with aliens. Does that make sense? Where they're not as frightened. To me, I don't know because I never experienced it. Not aliens though, but quote unquote UAP. We'll get into that. This is like, oh my gosh. Anyway, here's another similar story that happened in America, in rural Oklahoma. In the school Hartshorn, Oklahoma, in 1975 at Miracle Mountain Boarding School, these children were spotted seeing a circle aircraft on the playground, similar to what happened in Ruwa, Zimbabwe. The children was frightened, and it was on the children were frightened. They said that they were seeing some of the children was seeing the kids running back into the building, and some of them were hearing like a girl screaming. I would be too. I would be deathly frightened. And the aircraft was said to hover over the playground. And even the older students were scared that they took a rifle and shot up at the aircraft, and that the aircraft took off. Uh, they never really talked about this incident, but almost until 50 years later, the witness finally spoke out and spoke out about the incidents. And they were reporting, or they were just saying that these aliens that came out of the spacecraft, they were shape-shifting entities, and that's what they were explaining. And a research had went among the students at that time to do interviews and ask them to draw what they witnessed, that across the board they had the exact same similar drawing of what the aircraft looked like. It's the same consistent drawing of the spaceships experiences, which is like super wild. Now I wonder if the alien did the shapeshift to also, I didn't really get into this also as much either, because I want to leave room for my own opinions. I wonder if these aliens shapeshift because they knew that they were young, and maybe it's their way to shapeshift into. They didn't say what they shapeshift to, but I think in something they did say that they might shapeshift to more like human like. I don't know, actually. Now I'm making shit up. If I was the aliens, and if I'm coming to the children knowing that children are more pure and they're most likely to change the world for the better at such a young age, when their mind is still so innocent, I would shapeshift into a human and talk to them like, hey, you need to take care of this because the adults are fucking everything up, you know? So not only that, the encounter has been such really weird. If you want to get into something a little bit more odd than what it is, animal mutilation. Okay, when I was doing the research, looking at these pictures, I was like, I'm scared. I am scared. Okay. Animal mutilation. So this is in San Luis Valley in Colorado in 1967. So in Colorado, on the King's Family Ranch, a horse named Lady was found dead. That was the first reported animal mutilation. I think it was. The skull was stripped from its flesh. It was clean. No trace of evidence of blood trace was found connecting to, quote unquote, the killer. What was bizarre is that the rest of the horse were still attached. The body of the horse was still attached, and it was only left with the neck bones connecting the skull. It was cleaned, crisp, fresh, and white bones. No meat. So that strike up the bizarre feeling, like who, or the bizarre thoughts of like, who the fuck did it, or what did it? And what happened was that, from across America, farmers are finding that their animals are all dead across the field. It was said that their flesh was carved in somewhat lasered or clean cut to the skin. If you look up the research, you can see that some of their faces of the animal, you can tell it was a razor cut and it was super uh, clean. And also, from looking at the pictures, what was also really strange to me is like how the body was still planted there, and you can see like these little. You can see like I don't know if it's the blood from the animal's body, or residue of something, but it's in the shape of the animal's body. I thought that was strange. Like nothing is bleeding out. You don't, to do that massive cut of like removing skin from the bone. I don't know anything about killing like a live animal like that, but I know that when you start stabbing things or cutting things, the it's gonna spur out and it's gonna be everywhere. In these sightings, in these reports, there was nothing of that sort, which is really, really strange. It's almost like they suck it up. It's almost like they suck the blood dry. Or if there was like a heated like dry machine where they like, I was going to say boom. Boom means to suck, suck the blood dry. Why are we talking about a lot of sucking right now? And also, the organs were removed and the brain dried by some high heat device, is what I've written. Very often found strange sightings of lights around where the animals were mutilated. So they did had some camera films that there were like these orbs or lights. And speaking of orbs and light, I will go further down. This is also connected into like crop circles where they witnessed these lightings that kind of float around there. Interesting, right? Some people around that time also have witnessed seeing a beam from the sky shooting down, and these animals are being lifted to the sky and being dropped back down to the field. I've always seen like those in cartoons or like funny ass movies, like not another teen movie or scary movies. There's something that they would do something like that. But I would never to really, maybe obviously this is why they make cartoons about it, because it's that true sightings of what people have said that they witnessed. That's fucked. Imagine seeing your fucking animal being lifted up in the air. Goodbye. Now that I'm wondering, what are you more afraid of? Come out, ghosts, demons, possession, or aliens? Fuck. You know what? Throw me away from this earth because everything is so ghetto. Excuse me. Gotta clear my throat for this. Okay, now that we talked about animal mutilation, now that we talked about animals mutilations and eyewitness of UAPs or UFOs, we're gonna get into the actual physical human experiences. These are life-changing experiences that I have done some research. This one is quite the story. So there were 3 people that encountered the UAPs, and it had left them with physical injuries, right? And this happened in Dayton, Texas, in December 29th, 1980. So it was a grandmother and her friend and her grandson. I didn't put their name in. I don't know why. I just didn't feel like doing that. And the grandson, they were driving back home in the middle of the night, and it's always in some open space in the neck of the woods. And when I say open space, it's like open skyline. When they were driving, they spotted a floating vehicle that was said to be about 100 feet wide across and 100 feet tall. And it was in a diamond-shaped object that was beaming some sort of light from the tip. So, it would, hold on. If you are watching this, diamond shaped like this, like, hove. Like the Illuminati sign that JC always put up. That's the, I don't know why I did that for. That's the shaped UAPs object that was said that they have seen floating across the trees, right? Um, and also, while the object was floating across this field or whatever it was that they witnessed in Texas, they were surrounded by 23 helicopters, which means that the government was involved. The government was following this object if there were said to be 23 helicopters. For them to mention 23 helicopters, helicopters are what? Helicopters are, we're familiar with helicopters. So that means that the government was wondering what the fuck is this? So the object was radiating heat, that the environment was also heated from whatever that was spewing out of the tip of the diamond shaped aircraft. And what happened was that all three of them decided to step out and they can feel that the area was heated up from whatever it is that the aircraft was beaming. And even to the point where when they touched the car was hot from outside. And obviously this must be radiation that it was producing from, not that it was producing, that it was spewing from this spaceship. All three was taken to the hospitals because they all had the same sickness and nauseous feelings that lasted for a couple of days. So they went to the hospital. And skin blisters and sores. The one that had said to suffer the most was the grandmother's friend, because she stood out, and I wrote her name down. I don't know why I didn't write the rest of the name down. Betty Cash suffered the most severe because she was out of the car the longest, because she was suffering a lot from the sickness and the sores and the blisters, and also the hospitals. And by going into the hospital, they were doing research on her. She blamed the government for this. I would be fucking too. Hello? With the 23 helicopters, like, what are you doing? Because you're not giving any sort of explanation whatsoever was what happened during that time when they all have witnessed this aircraft. So she took the government to court. She tried to sue them. But guess what? The court case was dismissed. They tried to sue. It didn't happen. However, the case was documented and it was reported. How sad is that? Like, that you can't get a definite answer from anything. And I think the reason why, at least, I think that people just want answers from the government. The least that you can do is give everyone that closure. Because I know that there are some of the things that I didn't write down, they were pretty like sad, because a lot of these people actually still suffer the trauma of being abducted. I didn't get too much of the abduction story because that kind of like freaked me out a little bit, because I remember watching documentaries and I didn't like the way it made me feel. I talk a lot about ghost stories. One of these days I will go back into like this topic and maybe get more stories on people who have been abducted by aliens. And if you can only imagine, like, I think the people just want answers from the government. The government not fucking saying anything, just motherfuckers. Like, say something. Here's something a little bit more interesting and fun, lighthearted. Crop circles. The earliest sighting of crop circles, everyone know what crop circle is, dates back into the English pamphlet from 1678. And apparently, when I was doing the research, I did not realize that a lot of the crop circles were being witnessed mostly in England, especially around southern England. This phenomena began in the 1970s. It appeared mostly in southern England in Wiltshire, within the villagers. The villagers is said to be Pusey, Devizes, and Ivebury. That oddly enough, it formed into a triangle shaped of the village. I don't know the distance between the village, but that's what it forms. That's where a lot of the crop circles happened, right? But also they were thinking that the crop circles can also be connected to like the Stonehenge. That's also kind of mysterious. And also there's another like stone circles that's in England that I didn't do enough research on, but I know that there's like two or a couple more. So to me, not to me actually, as I'm doing the research, they call these the modern crop circles because the ancient times they were using stones. But why is it that maybe they did have crop circles from before, but it was said that it was 1678. So crop circles is probably way back then. But the only thing that being recorded was the stones that they were using to tell times, and with Stonehenge, they said that it was also used to communicate with the divine. A lot of stones and megalith objects are said to use as a communication with the divine. But anyway, so apparently crop circles happen every year, and it's about 100 over 150 crop circles which show up across the world. Pretty interesting, right? And this is like a worldwide phenomena. Mysterious patterns through the field. They're perfect geometrics. You guys know how they look like. They're not always circles, but they're beautiful to look at. These crop circles, they mostly appeared during the harvest season throughout the summer. And it's said that the patterns is said to be electromagnetic energy. In England, there is a tourist attraction where people go and get a glimpse of these crop circles. And of course, people are attracted, like the spiritualists or people who are connected spiritually in that sort, will go in and feel the presence of the electromagnet. And some have said that it'll make their heart race. Some people said that they will feel electric tingling through the body. And here's something that's also cool. Also not cool. Well, I find it kind of cool. They're also trying to debunk that there are, what I've learned, crop makers. They have these people that come together and they would make crop circles. And usually these crop makers takes about 8 hours. Takes about 8 to 10 hours or maybe more. And it takes about 8 to 10 people to make these crop circles. But here's the strange thing. Real crop circles only last for a few hours. Made to make is few hours, and it happens in the middle of the night. That's something that you can't do without lights. And also what's interesting is that they said that the crop makers would describe when they getting into it's a lot of work. Sometimes you have to tread through muds, and sometimes you can see footprints. You will get footprints of people coming in to do crop circles. And researchers have said that you can tell the difference between the crop makers and what is being made by extraterrestrial like beings or something else out of this earth plane. That you can tell throughout the crops that there is this pattern of breaking the crops. Quote unquote, real crop circles, it's somewhat seamless. And then you can actually see that the crops are being intertwined or kind of like woven in a way where it's impossible for human to make. Super interesting, right? Also, on the morning of the August 11th of 1996, a crop hunter filmed during the day of what looked like several orbed lights floating across the field. And as it was floating across the field, crop circles was being made. It was like magic. But also, that's also being testified as if this footage is real or not. But still it still give room for people to question how is it that this is possible. And if by miracles, I read by if by miracles circles appears under the orb lights. I've always wondered if these crop circles are they messages for us? Because in ancient time, they've already said that we've been connected with aliens. But these crop circles are beautifully made geometric patterns that you have to take like a helicopter to see it from the top. Are they messages for us, or is it messages for their own kind? Or is it like a landmark to say, hey, come here. So come here and grab a beer while we fly across Earth to get to their destination. It question to why are they here? What are the reason they're here? Do they want something from us? I forgot to talk about my story as I'm ending it with this question. What do they want from Earth, right? I'm going to talk about my story a little bit and then we can end it that. This was during probably the 90s when I was living on Ash Street. We'll leave it at that. And it was a three family apartment. And I remember in the middle of the night, we were playing Tat Kapong, which is Kick the Can. It's a Cambodian game. And I remember that towards the end, the last game that we kicked, it got quiet. It got very silent. And it kind of made me wonder, like, where the fuck did everyone go? It's almost like time just went quiet. And then I kind of like popped my head out. I was like, oh, okay, I guess the game is done. No one wants to play it anymore. So it's like that, right? Then all of a sudden I heard one of the neighbor, he's probably like around 6 around that time. And I heard him screaming on top of his lungs. And he said, what the fuck is that? Oh my gosh, what the fuck is that? And I ran up to him because I was scared because it sounded like he was getting murdered. And I looked up and I got fucking scared, but he couldn't stop screaming. So I told him to shut the fuck up. And that's when he started crying and he ran. And this is when I saw my little brother and my little sister ran next to me. They saw the same thing, what I looked at. And I couldn't understand what I was staring at. So my apartment where we were living at, it was like tall like this. So it was like 1, 2, 3. It was like straight up like that. And on top of the apartment, what he was pointing at looked like, and you can see like the street lights. So during the 90s, our street lights were not that great. It was like very yellow, very blurred yellow. And I can see the street light casting onto what looked like a UFO or a UAP, whatever spacecraft there was. At first, I thought it was like a big animal, and then I kind of like stared at it again. I remember me and my little brother and my little sister just kind of stared at it. I remember noticing it that as it was moving across the apartment, I don't know, it looked like it was about like 13 feet tall, maybe 15 feet, 20 feet. I don't know my math. And I can see the silver lining, and it was almost like oval shaped that was floating across the apartment. And I can see the silver lining that it was silver. It was metal. It kind of looked goldish a little bit because the street light was yellow. And then all of a sudden it moved and then it disappeared. That big thing just disappeared. And we all ran up into the apartment. And we just looked at each other like, what the fuck was that? Mind you, we were kids, so we kind of really didn't think too much about it. And my little brother and my little sister have witnessed the same thing. And till this day, we talked about it. Call me crazy. Call me fucking crazy. I've also had another story where one of my friend had witnessed an unidentified object. There was a few of them that she saw and freaked her out. We can leave that for another day. And also, my oldest brother witnessed some sort of alien person thing in the same apartment. And we just discovered learning about this about a year ago. Dun dun dun. How creepy. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Peter with podcast. I apologize again for the missing episode. Well, in the meantime, thank you. I see you or hear you soon. Well, you'll hear me soon. Until next week. Bye.